Ramon Menendez's 1988 film Stand and Deliver depicts the success of a group of high school students who, with the help and inspiration of Jaime Escalante, managed to pass the AP Calculus exam, proving to themselves and their community that they can succeed academically. The most prominent theme in this film is the idea of education and how it is a means of upward mobility in society for minority communities. However, while the narrative conveys the message of education, the film's visual aesthetics also paints a different story about minority communities, specifically Hispanic communities. The need for academic success in Hispanic communities comes from the fact that Hispanics in America, as with other minority groups such as African Americans, Native Americans, and Asian Americans, have gone through a process of colonization living in America. In the book review of Viva la Raza, A History of Chicano Identity and Resistance by Yolanda Alaniz and Megan Cornish, Gabriela Rico writes, although white cultural nationalism is not necessarily tagged as separationist because whiteness in the United States is viewed as the norm, it is still a form of separationism that has been detrimental to people of color. But when people of color subscribe to cultural nationalism and demand land, the right to self-defense, control of resources, and the right to self-determination, they are dismissed as separationists and are told they aren't a nation. Rico argues that when minorities such as Hispanics try to assimilate into the mainstream culture, such as by speaking English, they are still not given access to growth in America. When they embrace their cultures, they are prevented from upward mobility in society because they do not fit the national cultural identity. In this sense, the dominant American culture colonizes minority communities only to reject them later. Stand and Deliver argues that members in these communities can be given a chance to succeed despite their culture through education. However, the success of minority communities is not measured by their ability to assimilate into the dominant American identity through education and language, but through their ability to preserve their diverse identity. The film Stand and Deliver advocates for higher education to achieve success, but through setting, costumes, and sound, viewers witness the success of a community without that higher education. First, the setting. When the film opens, viewers see teacher Jaime Escalante driving around East Los Angeles. Through a montage of different parts of the city, viewers are meant to feel that Escalante is driving through a dangerous neighborhood. However, upon reflection, there is more to the neighborhood than the first impression leads viewers to believe. That opening montage shows a functioning community that is not a battleground for gangs, as is often the perception in the media. It shows thriving businesses such as a party supply store, a muffler shop, a music/bookstore, and a taco truck. Running a business requires a certain amount of intelligence that the people in the community clearly possess, despite not having the conventional education that the film tries arguing is necessary to succeed in America. In addition, the people moving around the city display a sense of thriving despite not having an education or owning a business. Viewers see people selling produce at the freeway entrance, people riding behind a pickup truck on the way to work as suggested by the shovels they hold, and also musicians dressed for a gig. These people show that although they are not highly educated, they still possess the skills to survive in America. Next, the costumes. The film's costumes also try to undermine the characters' abilities by depicting some of them as gang members through their clothing. In one scene where Angel and his friends enter Jaime Escalante's class, there is a division seen between the characters. Angel and his friends are dressed in stereotypical cholo attire, while the students sitting down are dressed in typical 80s clothing. The juxtaposition of these characters' clothing shows that the film is trying to show audiences that people dressed in stereotypical gang attire are the students doomed to fail, making Angel's success in the class even more triumphant. However, later in the film, these characters fix Jaime's car. This act shows that despite their education, they possess a different skill set, such as working with cars, a valuable skill as most people own a car that will eventually need to be worked on. This skill is likely to prove beneficial in the future for them, as it can succeed in America without the higher education. Third, the sound. The film's sound indicates a community's ability to communicate in different languages. This is an important skill as being able to communicate in English is important in America, but also being able to communicate within the Hispanic community in Spanish is as important. The characters demonstrate their bilingual abilities throughout the film, such as when Angel and his grandma are waiting to be seen by a doctor. Angel can communicate with his grandmother and the nurse in the clinic. His bilingual abilities prove essential because he can translate for his grandmother. This shows another skill that would prove beneficial as it opens up employment opportunities where bilingual skills are required. As Eugenia Casiellas Suarez writes in her article, Spanglish, the hybrid voice of Latinos in the United States, it has been recognized that specific instances of code switching can be used to quote, emphasize, add another level of meaning, clarify or evoke richer images, add humor, irony, or language/wordplay, mark closeness, emphasize bonds, or on the contrary, mark distance. Casiellas Suarez argues that bilingual people can communicate on a different level than people who only speak one language. This is apparent in the film, as Jaime Escalante also uses English and Spanish to communicate with his class. In this way, he is able to gain their trust by speaking similarly to how they speak. In the end, Stand and Deliver tells the story of the success of a group of minority students through their educational triumphs. However, it ignores the community as a whole, which is seen as a thriving community through different aspects such as the setting, costume, and sound. Through these formal elements, viewers can read the film as the story of students succeeding in a community that defines its success through a different criteria than simply forming part of the stereotypical American dream.